الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. الإخوة والأخوات أطباء المختبرات الطبية حاضري هذه دورة ضبط الجودة في المختبرات الطبية، سلام من الله وبارك طيب عليكم ورحمته تعالى وبركاته. إنه من دواعي سروري أن ألتقيكم في هذه الحلقة، وهي الحلقة الأخيرة من تدارس هذا الموضوع آنف الذكر، وأسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يوفقنا في ختام هذا الموضوع إلى الهدف الذي من أجله اجتمعنا، ويعيننا جميعا إلى ما فيه فائدتنا وفائدتكم وفائدة أمتنا وجميع الأمم بإذن الله سبحانه وتعالى، ويحبب إلينا مهنتنا التي ارتضينا بأن تكون مصدر عيشنا بإذن الله سبحانه وتعالى، ويلهمنا العلمية والمهنية في تقديم خدماتنا، ويرزقنا رضاء جميع عملائنا الذين نخدم بنفس راضية منشرحة بإذن الله سبحانه وتعالى. كنا قد تدارسنا في الحلقة الأخيرة الخدمات المعملية غير الرقمية أو الخدمات المعملية النوعية qualitative laboratory services and semi-quantitative laboratory services، وهي الخدمات المعملية التقديرية التي تقع بين هذا وهذا، لا هي نوعية بشكل صريح ولا هي كمية بشكل صريح، ولكن تقوم على تقدير المواد التي يتم تحليلها في هذه العينات. وقلنا أنه لا ينبغي وأنه من الضرورة بمكان أن تكون هنالك وسائل وآليات وأدوات متخصصة للتثبت من جودة وحسن أداء هذه الخدمات في المختبرات، وجودة الناتج النهائي والنتائج التي تصدر من اختبار العينات وصدور هذه الأنواع من الخدمات. اليوم نكمل ببعض الإجراءات والاختبارات التي نجريها في المختبرات من أجل التثبت أو من أجل اختيار المضادات الحيوية أو مضادات الميكروبات التي يتم استخلاصها من عينات المرضى في حالات تشخيص الالتهابات المختلفة التي تعتري الإنسان. ونعرف أن الالتهابات المختلفة infections التي تصيب الإنسان سببها أصلا الميكروبات المختلفة، سواء كانت بكتيريا أو فيروسات أو طفيليات أو فطريات أو ما يشابه ذلك. ولكن نعني في هذه المناسبة المسببات الأمراض من البكتيريا المختلفة الممرضة التي تسبب العديد من الإصابات والالتهابات المختلفة للإنسان، وأنه حين يراد تشخيص هذه الإصابات تأخذ عينات من المواقع المناسبة من دم الإنسان وتعالج في المختبرات بالزراعة، ويتم استخلاص المسببات المناسبة المسببة لهذه الميكروبات من البكتيريا، وبعد التعرف عليها بدقة يتم اختبار المضادات الحيوية المختلفة لإعانة الطبيب المعالج على لاختيارها كمواد لمعالجة هذه الالتهابات. Quality control of antimicrobial susceptibility testing. Antimicrobial susceptibility test. This test provides information for selection of an appropriate agent for antimicrobial therapy, as this is what we have discussed before. Antimicrobial susceptibility test method interpretation. After you carry out the test, it is very necessary to have the skills to interpret what does that finding means. Agar diffusion method provides qualitative interpretation and interpretive category result of susceptible, intermediate, and resistant bacteria. Through applying this type of test in the laboratory, which is the disk diffusion method, you will be able, if you provide that procedure successfully, you will be able to describe an organism as susceptible or intermediately resistant or resistant to the different antimicrobials that we have tested in the laboratory. Microdilution and agar dilution and agar gradient diffusion method provide a quantitative result with a minimum inhibitory concentration level, MIC, minimal inhibitory concentration. It is a quantitative procedure indicating the concentration and the amount of antimicrobial which is effective against the isolated microorganisms in the laboratory. Antimicrobial susceptibility testing methods. These are the disk this is the disk diffusion. The isolated microorganism is cultivated all throughout the plate. The plate which is specifically designed and prepared for this purpose, and the antimicrobials are placed in form of discs soaked with the appropriate antimicrobials, placed on the agar plate after streaking the test organisms, and then the plate is incubated for a given time, and after that the inhibitory zones of inhibition and prevention of growth are examined and measured to indicate the reactivity of the microorganisms against the antimicrobials that have been tested. In disk dilution, the organism is prepared in formal dilution in test tube, including fluid culture, and then these tubes are incubated for a given period, and after that growth is noted. Those tubes which indicates no growth, it means that concentration of the same antimicrobial is effective against those microbes, indicated by prevention of the growth, and those which show the growth. The last tube indicating growth, or the first group, or the first tube indicating no growth, is actually the concentration suitable for treating those microbes. Concentration of the of the antimicrobial effective and inhibitory to the growth of the microbe. References: Clinical and Laboratory Standards Institute, which is American, and French Society of Microbiology and British Society of Microbiological of Antimicrobial Chemotherapy. These are the sources of the previous information. Where errors can occur in susceptibility testing. Errors used to occur on the culture media, either contaminated culture media and either inhibitory culture media, and I would like to say the culture media used for susceptibility testing should be free from any inhibitory materials, because it has to support growth of the isolates. And the antimicrobials may be contaminated, or the antimicrobial included on the discs or in the fluid culture may be out of date and not function. Then the inoculum of the organism of the dry culture media may be highly thick, and this one will when it is highly thick, it will affect the distribution or the diffusion of the antimicrobial place of the surface of the culture media. And if it is very thin, this will make the inhibitory zones untruly wide, and it may result in reporting some resistant microorganisms sensitive. Incubation, it is very necessary to adjust the incubation temperature and the time of incubation, otherwise misreactions will take place, and this may the temperature, if they are very high, may also affect the growth of different microorganisms. The equipment that are used to isolate and to incubate the cultures should perform well. And if you are using the automated procedures, the automated equipment of microbiology, also this should be well managed and well controlled to guarantee the services that are obtained by utilizing them. Misinterpretation of the results also is very necessary and very important point that used to yield misreporting and wrong results. It is very necessary for those who are interpreting the cultures and the findings of the cultures in the laboratories of the susceptibility testing to be aware about the different aspects and to have the satisfactory skills and knowledge which qualify them for interpreting the results and identifying different antimicrobials to be used. When you use ready culture media ready to use, the user should request full information on composition, pH, date of preparation and of expiry of the culture media, and the control organisms for verifying performance. These are very important information to obtain from the manufacturer or from the body which prepared the ready to be used culture media, and also you have to play a role in setting the quality and examining the performance of those organisms, and the procedure to use should be asked for from the preparing body, because the preparing body is the one who understand before more than you about the procedures that he used to adopt in setting or assuring the quality of the material that he is distributing. Prepared media or prepared media should be stored at the appropriate temperature. Culture media, after preparation and after you assure the quality of those culture media, should be prepared, should be preserved in a suitable refrigerators, not used for any other purposes. These refrigerators should be carefully closed, not exposed to any other contaminants, because culture media are easily contaminated because they are very suitable media for growth of microorganisms. Never use the culture media beyond the expiry date set by the manufacturer or the body that prepared the culture media, because the efficiency and the performance of them will reduce to the extent that affect the growth of microorganisms. Some dehydrated media may be contaminated with dead bacteria, which may retain their morphological integrity after preparation and autoclaving, and will show up on gram stain of liquid culture media. And this is very necessary point. If dry culture media are not well maintained and preserved, contamination may be there, but the contaminants may eventually die out due to the closure and preservation and due to the sterilization. But the death of those microorganisms will never exclude their integrity to stay as integrated bodies, and those when such culture media is used to grow microorganisms and the identification procedures are carried out in the laboratory by staining the isolate with gram stain, such bacteria which are dead and which are previously contaminated microbes may appear on the microscope, and this contamination is actually defective and very serious, and it may result for misreporting of the isolates by the laboratory staff. So be assured that the culture media is not contaminating anyway. It's not contaminated anyway. When using a medium, is used for the first time, or when it is obtained from a new supplier, monitor the performance. Performance of culture media is indicated by growth inhibition. Make sure that culture media are not containing any inhibitors that may interrupt and prevent the growth of microorganisms. organisms, because, as I said before, the growth culture used for susceptibility testing should be completely free from any inhibitory materials or any inhibitors, with selected control culture. You need to obtain some control cultures and incubate them on that culture medium. Growth of those microorganisms will indicate that the culture media is free from inhibitors. In-house prepared culture media. There should be an SOPs for preparation of in-house culture media, and separate room for preparation is very necessary to avoid contamination of the prepared materials. Order quotation 6 to 12 months, not more than this. 6 to 12 months. Any quotation is ordered to use within 6 to 12 months, because any period beyond that may render the culture media unsuitable for use. Contain size of 1 to 2 months consumption. Container size for 1 to 2 months consumption, not more than that. The container of a specific powder or a specific type of culture media should be carefully selected to stay or to be utilized within 1 to 2 months, because any periods beyond this may cause the laboratory to use defective or spoiled culture media. All the stock first in the laboratory. When you come to utilize them, you start using and consuming the older stock of culture first in, first out. Discard compact dehydrated culture media. Any powder of culture media that have been changed and become dehydrated should be discarded. Any culture media that lose the integrity and lose the accepted moisture should be discarded, because they are no longer suitable for use in laboratories. Prepare quantities to use before shelf life expires. Don't prepare big amount of culture media, and they will some of them will stay in the laboratory until they are expired. You need to measure and to assume and to assess your utilization, and after that prepare the culture media suitable for the amount that you are utilizing. Date containers of dehydrated media when received and when first opened. This is very necessary. Then store dehydrated media in tightly capped containers below 25 degrees centigrade or refrigerated. The dried culture media in country like Sudan should be refrigerated, because 25 degrees centigrade are not maintained in room temperatures in Sudan, so it is safer to refrigerate the dehydrated culture media, carefully stoppered, carefully closed. Use only distilled or deionized water to reconstitute culture media in laboratories. Never use tap water. Avoid overheating when you are preparing the culture media, because overheating will spoil the gel and the gelatin used in the culture media, and also may cause missing of the nourish that is placed in the culture media to support the growth of different microorganisms. Adhere to written instructions provided by the manufacturer, because the manufacturer always are the more people aware with what they have been developed, and they used to provide, according to the international regulations of IVDs, to provide the end users with all the knowledge and information they need. So try to get maximum use of those information provided by manufacturers, and if they are not satisfactory, try to obtain them from the supplier, through the supply from the manufacturer. Sterility and performance testing is very necessary. Through sterility testing, you actually assure that the culture media that you have prepared is sterile, because it is impossible and it is wrong procedure and practices to use contaminated media. And through performance also you indicate that the culture media which you have obtained and prepared is suitable for utilization and will support growth of different microorganisms in the laboratory. Agar diffusion method. The medium used is molar and hinted, and the thickness of prepared plates should be 4 millimeter thickness and pH 7.2 to 7.4. These are standard specifications of molar and hinting on the plate. Antibiotic disc storage should be at minus 20 degrees centigrade minimum. If higher than that, it's preferred. But to guarantee the integrity of the disc diffusion of the antimicrobial discs that are used, you need to preserve them at minus 20 degrees centigrade. Inoculation bacteria per milliliter, you need to use McFarland standard, which indicates 0.5 barium, 0.5 concentration, and this will indicate the content of the tube container as 10 to the power 8. If you have electronic counter, then try to include or to contain 10 to the power 8 bacterial cells. Incubator temperature is 35 degrees centigrade, and this is very necessary. 37 degrees centigrade is mostly unsuitable for the susceptibility activity of the microbes. Ambient temperature is atmospheric. The atmospheric is the ambient temperature that should be used to set those standards. Reference strains for the routine purposes in microbiological lab are E. coli 80 cc25 922, Staphylococcus aureus 80 cc25 923, and Pseudomonas aeruginosa 80 cc27 853. These are the reference organisms used to control the susceptibility testing. QC programs must be obtained from repeatable sources. Programs to adopt or to apply to maintain the susceptibility testing should be obtained from repeatable sources. Use a specific QC, and those repeatable sources are either WHO, and the WHO used to avail those procedures from collaborating centers like NCCLS before, and now CLSI, and from Pasteur Institute, and also from other bodies of reference laboratories or collaborating centers adopted by WHO. Use specific QC organisms to test different groups of drug bugs or combinations. Some drugs are prepared in combination of more than one antimicrobial. To test those, you need to use a specific group of antimicrobials, and this is indicated also by the manufacturers, which used to develop to set such standards. It is very necessary to get use of the information and knowledge provided by a specific international body. Selection of a colony to test for susceptibility testing. This is the procedure: to have an isolated colony, a unique isolated colony, but not to isolate material from multiple colonies, as you will not know the types of those organisms forming these colonies, but the one isolated colony on the cultural media indicates that this is one type of the organism, because contaminated are multiple colonies, multiple organisms placed in one colony will affect the final result, as integrated colonies, inhibitory zones will take place. McFarland tube containing barium chloride to make the suitable turbidity of the inoculum in fluid culture as performed, and then the background should be a paper with such black lines against which you can compare the tube of the standard McFarland tube and the tube containing the isolated bacteria, and when they mix, when they seem like each other, that is the standard which you have to use so as to overcome heavy inoculum or highly light inoculum. Use of disc dispenser, sometimes to place the discs of antimicrobials on the surface of agar. In case of agar diffusion methods, it's helpful to have the disc dispenser. You place the dedicated and suitable antimicrobials like this way, which come in cartridge, but by applying, and the plate is now under this dispenser. When you apply a pressure from above the dispenser, then automatically and eventually a single disc will be placed on the side by placing by that pressure, and this will maintain standardization distance between the different discs. Advantage of that is it's practical, rapid, increase reproducibility, but the risk is the contamination and reduce personal judgment of skills. Disc susceptibility testing problems are those are two categories of different problems that arise by using disc diffusion technique. Disc properly aligned and spaced. These discs aligned and spaced properly, but disc aligned in space and spaced in inoculum too heavy. Inoculum too heavy. This inoculum is very heavy, and some discs which should be acceptable as indicating susceptibility of the microbe against the antimicrobial placed on that disc will show inactivity of the will show resistance of the microbe to the given antimicrobial. So you need to standardize the inoculum, and you need also to standardize the quality of the susceptibility disc. And another problem is the disc properly aligned and spaced, like this one, aligned and spaced, but zone space distorted, because it seems the disc was placed first here and after that it has been moved, because disc not properly applied. So this is not a susceptibility zone, because it is not circular as it should be. Caliper used to measure the susceptibility zone, and otherwise use the ruler also to measure the susceptibility zone. Read the zone with good light and from the back of the plate. Zone size reading is drug specific. Drug specific means it should know the given the maximum zone size maintained by a given zone by a given type of antimicrobial. Magnification may help to point out the edges at the ends of the growth and the size of inhibition zone. Millimeters matter because it should be measured in millimeters. E-test, antimicrobial gradient method. E-test is the procedure that is adopted in the laboratory to maintain the antimicrobial gradient method of applying susceptibility tests of the antimicrobes against the different of the microorganisms against the different antimicrobials. Patient results may be incorrect if the organism was misidentified. This is why we said before it is very necessary to identify and to manage the samples obtained for culture, and to maintain and also manage the procedures used for identifying, isolation and identifying of the different of the different organisms before carrying out the antimicrobials. The organism was misidentified, and also the results are incorrect when a clerical error was made to nominate or to set the codes of the isolates. Inappropriate choice of antimicrobial was tested and reported. It is very necessary to identify the antimicrobials to be used against different different microorganisms, and you should have the background of choosing the right antimicrobials to be utilized. The wrong patient sample was examined. This is very necessary, as we said before. The sample management is very necessary to make the procedures used to test antimicrobial, to carry out antimicrobial testing, and all the qualitative laboratory examinations effective and useful. The wrong test was ordered. If the wrong test was ordered, all the subsequent procedures that are adopted by the laboratory will also be wrong. The sample was not preserved properly. If the sample is mispreserved, then the organism will find a way to multiply, and by this way you may lose, or you may miss the real causative agents, or instead of reporting the culture as negative, it will become positive, because the contamination and mispreservation of the sample will cause the causative agents in a low amount, like that in urine samples, to multiply and exceed and achieve the acceptable or the causative doses of the microorganism, and this way you will report some negative culture of the sample as positive culture. Thank you very much for attendance, and see you.